The taste of control. Hit that subscribe button before we go deep into the system's kitchen, because once you hear what they're really feeding them, you'll never look at your dinner the same way again. The story begins in the middle of a winter morning at Rikers Island, the kind of cold that seeps into the bones and turns breath into fog. Inside the mess hall, the clang of trays and the low murmur of voices carried through the steel corridors. The food line moved slowly, a mechanical ritual. Plastic gloves slapped down something grayish on a tray, meatloaf, or at least what was supposed to be. It smelled faintly of disinfectant. Behind that line stood Marcus "Smoke" Langford, a man whose name once ruled headlines across New York's underground. A former street hustler turned self-made kingpin. His operation stretched from Harlem to the Bronx before the inevitable collapse. Betrayed, cornered, and sentenced to life, Smoke entered Rikers as another number. But he didn't fade, he adapted. Rikers was designed to break men. But Smoke had a different kind of hunger. As he took his seat at a long table, his sharp eyes scanned the room, seeing desperation disguised as routine. The food was more than nourishment here. It was control. You ate what they gave you, or you starved. You complained, and your portions mysteriously got smaller. The kitchen, Smoke realized, wasn't just a place to feed inmates. It was where power lived. Rumors spread fast in prison, and by his second week, Smoke heard one that stuck with him. They cut corners in the kitchen budget. A lifer whispered beside him. Sell the good stuff, feed us the scraps. Another said food deliveries vanished overnight, only to be found later sold outside the prison gates. The whispers pointed toward Warden Keller, a man with a clean public image and a smile that never reached his eyes. Smoke didn't care about reform. Not yet. But he did care about leverage. He started small, trading his commissary for extra meals, bribing a kitchen worker to tell him how the system ran. It wasn't long before he learned that the prison's food supplier was Keller's cousin. The numbers didn't add up. Smoke smelled opportunity. Weeks turned into months, and as the temperature dropped, the food quality did too. Mysterious stomach illnesses spread across the blocks. The soup looked like dirty water, and bread turned green by the third day. The guards blamed inmates for complaining too much. Smoke, however, started documenting everything he saw. He kept a notebook, a forbidden one, hidden inside the vent above his cell. Every detail, every shipment, every name. One night, the kitchen erupted in chaos. An inmate named Reggie Mills collapsed during dinner, convulsing on the floor. The guards dragged him out, shouting for medics that never came. Reggie didn't survive the night. By morning, they said it was heart failure. But Smoke knew what he saw. Reggie hadn't died from fear. He died from what they were being fed. The incident set off something in him. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore. He became a watcher. The food trays, the guards' patterns, the storage room lights that flickered at midnight. Nothing escaped his notice. And when he saw Keller personally inspecting a food delivery under the cover of night, his instincts sharpened. Something was being hidden. Smoke started talking, quietly, carefully. His words spread across cell blocks, gathering attention. Inmates began refusing food in small groups, calling it the protest of hunger. The guards cracked down hard. They raided cells, beat a few, made examples. But it only fueled the fire. Smoke knew he couldn't confront Keller head-on. Instead, he needed proof, something that would expose what the kitchen was really serving. One night, Smoke bribed a rookie kitchen worker named Luis Ortega, a young man from the Bronx who got caught up in the wrong crowd. "They got me running numbers, man," Luis whispered, trembling. "They say I'm cooking for inmates, but half the food never even makes it to the pot." He promised to show Smoke where it went, if Smoke promised protection. That same night, Luis slipped him a folded paper hidden inside a loaf of bread. It was a delivery invoice, identical to others Smoke had seen, except this one listed correctional surplus worth thousands of dollars. Goods that were never seen again. It was the first tangible link tying Keller to the missing supplies. Smoke couldn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling, the faint hum of electricity buzzing through the walls. He realized what the food represented. It wasn't about nutrition or health. It was about breaking spirit. If you can control what a man eats, you can control what he believes he deserves. The next morning, the kitchen smelled different. The usual metallic stench was replaced with something sharper, like ammonia. Smoke sat down for breakfast, but before he could take a bite, the sirens wailed. Guards flooded in, yelling orders. Keller was there too, his face flushed red with anger. Luis was gone, his bunk empty, his name wiped from a roster. No one saw him leave. Some said he was transferred. Others said he was silenced. Smoke's notebook was still hidden, but now he knew the cost of truth inside a place built on silence. That night, as the lights dimmed across the cell block, Smoke whispered to himself, "They think the food keeps us weak. But hunger, that's what makes men dangerous." He didn't know it yet, but that notebook would become the most dangerous thing inside Rikers Island. Because what he was about to uncover would expose more than bad food. It would reveal how the system itself fed off the suffering of men it claimed to reform. When he opened the next page, he found a fresh piece of paper he hadn't written. Someone had slipped it in. It read, "If you're serious about exposing Keller, meet me in the laundry room tomorrow, midnight." And for the first time in months, Smoke felt something new. Not hunger, not fear, but the taste of rebellion. The Hunger Games of Rikers. Before we dive into the dark truth that even the guards tried to bury, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because what's coming next was never supposed to leave the prison walls. The laundry room at Rikers was a world apart. Humid, echoing, smelling of bleach and rust. The hum of the industrial dryers drowned out whispers, making it one of the few places where secrets could survive. Marcus Smoke Langford slipped in quietly at midnight, eyes scanning the corners. He'd learned never to trust silence. It usually meant someone was listening. A figure stepped out from the shadows. It wasn't a guard or an inmate he recognized. It was Officer Dana Reeves, one of the few correctional officers known for treating inmates like people instead of problems. She looked exhausted, her uniform wrinkled, her eyes darting around nervously. "You don't know me," she said, voice low. "But I've seen the reports Keller's been hiding. The food's contaminated, smoke. Expired supplies being repackaged and served. He's been pocketing the difference for years. Luis tried to expose it, that's why he's gone." Smoke froze. He'd suspected corruption. But poison? That was something darker. "Why tell me?" he asked. "Because Keller's untouchable," she said, glancing toward the door. "But you people listen to you. If you start something big enough, it might draw outside attention. Keller can silence a guard, but not a riot." Smoke didn't flinch at the word. In Rikers, a riot was suicide, but it was also power. Still, he wasn't reckless. "I don't start fires I can't control," he said. Reeves reached into her jacket and handed him a small flash drive wrapped in plastic. "Everything's on here, documents, photos, supplier records. It's enough to ruin him. But if you get caught with it, you'll disappear like the others." Smoke took it, nodding slowly. "Then I guess I'd better not get caught." That night, he sat on his bunk, thinking about Luis. About the lifeless bodies of men who'd trusted the system to at least feed them. His notebook, now full of evidence and coded notes, became his shield and his weapon. But he knew information alone wouldn't save him. He needed noise. Something that couldn't be ignored. Over the next few days, he quietly spread a message through the cell blocks. One sentence, passed in whispers. "We're starving for justice." At first, few believed him. But when word got out that 2 more inmates from Block C had been hospitalized after dinner, the whisper turned into a storm. Smoke's reputation gave it weight. When he spoke, people listened. And soon, hundreds of inmates began refusing their meals. The guards panicked. The kitchen halted. Even Keller took notice. By the 3rd day, the hunger strike had reached national attention. News outlets picked up rumors leaked by someone on the inside. Smoke knew it had to be Officer Reeves. She was risking her career, maybe her life. But now, it was out of Keller's hands. Cameras were circling Rikers. The public wanted answers. Keller's response was brutal. He ordered lockdowns. No recreation, no phone calls, no light after dark. Food rations were cut further for discipline. He even had Smoke moved into solitary confinement, the infamous box. The box was a cement tomb. No windows. No sound but your own heartbeat. They said it made men go insane after 3 days. Smoke lasted 6. His mind drifted between hallucinations and memory. The smell of his mother's kitchen, the laughter of his crew on the streets, the echo of Reggie Mills collapsing at the mess hall table. On the 7th day, a familiar voice broke through the door slot. "You're making headlines, Langford," Reeves whispered. "Keller's losing control. But you have to hold out a little longer." Smoke pressed his ear against the cold steel. "What about the drive?" "It's out," she said. "But there's a problem. Keller knows it came from me." Smoke's stomach dropped. "He'll come for you." "He already has," she said. "I'm being transferred to another facility tonight. I don't know where. You need to finish what we started." Her footsteps faded, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the walls. The next morning, guards pulled Smoke out of solitary. They told him he had a visitor, something rare for lifers. In the visiting room, behind bulletproof glass, sat a man in a suit, sharp, polished, and out of place. "I'm Anthony Greer, state investigator," the man said, adjusting his tie. "We've been following the story of your protest. Some of your claims line up with things we've been hearing for years." Smoke leaned closer. "Then why hasn't anyone done something?" Greer gave a tired smile. "Because Keller's been covering it with fake audits and bribes. But your little hunger strike got us the attention we needed. I can't promise justice yet, but I can promise exposure." Smoke didn't trust him completely, but it was something. "If you want proof, it's in my cell vent," he said. "Notebook. Everything's in there." When Smoke returned to his cell that night, his vent was empty. The notebook gone. Panic hit him like a punch to the chest. Someone had gotten there first. And there was only one person with the power to make that happen: Keller. Later that night, the guards dragged Smoke from his bunk. No explanation. No words. Just cuffs and silence. They took him down the corridor toward the kitchen, the same place where it all began. The smell of bleach and rotting food filled the air. Keller stood there, arms crossed, smirking. "You've caused quite a mess, Langford," he said. "Do you know how much money your little protest cost me?" Smoke didn't answer. He just stared, calm but defiant. Keller leaned closer, his voice a low hiss. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just another inmate. And when the news cycle moves on, no one will remember your name." Smoke smiled faintly. "Maybe. But they'll remember the taste of your food." For a moment, something flickered in Keller's eyes. Fear, maybe, or realization. Then he turned to the guards. "Put him in the cold cell." As they dragged Smoke away, he heard the distant sound of shouting, guards rushing, alarms blaring. Someone was yelling Keller's name over the radio. Something had gone wrong. By the time they reached the isolation block, word had spread federal investigators had entered the prison. Keller's office was being searched. Someone had leaked the flash drive contents to the media. And in that chaos, Smoke smiled for the first time in years. But then, as the lights flickered and the noise grew louder, he noticed something strange. The guard walking him wasn't heading toward the cell block. He was taking him deeper underground, toward the maintenance tunnels. Smoke tensed. "Where are we going?" The guard didn't answer. And when the heavy steel door slammed behind him, Smoke realized something. Keller wasn't done yet. The last meal. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story. It's a system built to break men. But what happens when the system finally chokes on its own lies? Stay till the end, because this ending was never supposed to be told. The maintenance tunnels beneath Rikers Island were a labyrinth of pipes, dripping water, and rusting steel doors. The kind of place where echoes swallowed screams. Marcus Smoke Langford's wrists burned from the cuffs as the guard led him forward, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. He didn't recognize the man's face under the brim of his cap, but the silence said everything. This wasn't a transfer. This was a burial. The guard finally stopped before an old supply room and unlocked the door. Inside, the air was thick with mold and dust. A single table sat in the middle, and on it, a metal tray of food. Steam rose from it faintly. Smoke stared. What is this? The guard stepped back, eyes darting. He said you earned a special meal before you disappear. Smoke looked down at the tray. A burger, fries, even a slice of apple pie. The kind of meal he hadn't seen in years. Too good. Too deliberate. He laughed bitterly. Tell Keller he could have at least tried harder. You think I don't know what poison smells like? The guard didn't answer. He just turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. The sound of the bolt echoed like a death sentence. Smoke sat down slowly, staring at the meal. He wasn't afraid, not anymore. He'd already faced death the moment he decided to speak up. What haunted him wasn't dying. It was dying forgotten. Then he heard it, a faint hum, mechanical, hidden behind the wall. He followed the sound and found a ventilation grate slightly loose. From inside came a flicker of blue light, a small security camera, poorly hidden. Someone was watching. Smoke smiled grimly. Then let's give them a show. He dragged the tray into the center of the room and stared straight into the lens. This is what justice tastes like in America, he said softly. Cold food, dirty lies, and blood under the floorboards. Upstairs, chaos had erupted. Federal agents were tearing through Keller's office, pulling files, downloading hard drives, interrogating staff. Keller's hands shook as he tried to maintain composure, sweat dripping down his neck. This is a witch hunt, he snapped at the lead investigator, Anthony Greer. Greer didn't even look up from the evidence bag in his hand. Funny. That's exactly what every guilty man says. Then Greer's phone buzzed. He frowned, opening the message. A live feed link. When he clicked it, the image filled the screen. Smoke Langford in the basement, staring directly into the hidden camera. Where is this? Greer demanded. The tech team scrambled. Unknown tunnel access point, not on any map. He's underground. Greer's heart sank. Keller, what's down there? But Keller's face had gone pale. He didn't answer. Instead, he bolted for the hallway. Meanwhile, Smoke heard the faint clanging of footsteps above. He knew his time was running out. His pulse slowed. He looked at the food again and reached into his pocket, pulling out a tiny folded napkin. Inside, written in his scrawled handwriting, were 3 words. We're still hungry. He set it beside the tray, sat back, and waited. Minutes later, Keller burst through the door, gun drawn, face twisted with rage. You just couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you? He snarled. You had to make yourself a martyr. Smoke tilted his head. Funny thing about martyrs, he said quietly. They don't die in silence. Keller raised the gun, but before he could pull the trigger, a booming voice echoed from the hallway. Put it down, Keller. Agents flooded the room, weapons drawn. Greer stepped forward, eyes wide with disgust. You were going to kill him. On camera. Keller's hand shook. For a moment, Smoke thought he might actually shoot, but then the weight of everything hit him. The walls of corruption he'd built over the years were collapsing. He lowered the gun slowly, muttering, You don't understand, none of this would have worked without them starving. Smoke stood, chains clinking, and met his eyes. Yeah, that's the point. Keller was cuffed on the spot. As agents led him away, the camera still streamed. The world was watching. Weeks later, news of the Rikers scandal dominated headlines. Investigations spread to prisons across the country. Keller faced charges of fraud, abuse, and conspiracy. Officer Reeves, who had been quietly transferred and silenced, was located and reinstated after testifying against him. And Smoke Langford? He became more than an inmate. He became a symbol. A man who turned starvation into resistance. From his cell, he began writing letters, essays, even a book. His story was picked up by journalists, reform advocates, and law students studying systemic abuse. The title of his first essay, The Last Meal. It described not just food, but the hunger for dignity, the craving for justice in a system designed to keep people broken. It spread online like wildfire, quoted in documentaries, protests, and college debates. Months later, during a rare interview, a reporter asked Smoke, Do you think anything's really changed? Smoke looked through the glass, his eyes calm but haunted. Not yet, he said. But the truth's out now. And truth, once it's fed, never starves again. He stood, the guard motioning to end the visit. As he walked back down the corridor, inmates from different blocks started tapping on their doors in rhythm. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. The same rhythm they'd used during the hunger strike. Smoke smiled. The system might still be broken, but for the first time it was afraid. Later that night, he received a meal tray, different from the usual gray slop. It had rice, beans, even a small carton of milk. No note, no message, but he understood. Someone in the kitchen remembered. He lifted the tray, whispering to himself, for Luis, for Reeves, for everyone who went hungry. As the lights dimmed, the camera in the corner blinked red. Still recording, still watching. Because now the world cared. And the last thing the system ever wanted was for people to see what was really being served behind bars. If you thought this story was dark, wait till you hear the next one. Smoke's voice would echo through the outro. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It feeds on what's left of you. Hit subscribe before it's too late. End of story. How prison food reflects the system's cruelty. Would you like me to now create 12 cinematic image prompts for per chapter, 16:9 realistic blue-tone crime scenes? For this story,